It is going to be week 12. We got 2 clinches, 2 eliminations, and we have a repeat game from earlier this season. This is Sports Hour. We are in We are going into week number 12. There's only a few weeks left, and we have a couple of eliminations. 2 teams have been eliminated from the possibility of hitting the playoffs at this given time. And I make sure to get the right screen up. So we have a few teams that were eliminated. We also have 2 teams that are now are in the NBL league for sure, or in the actual playoffs. And it's going to be a very interesting weekend. I have a hard time doing this. Alright, so we have a couple of teams still off there. Supermen and the Lightning were both eliminated last week. They are not eliminated from the March Madness bracket thing, what we call it. I'm not sure what they call that. The USA tournament. Not technically eliminated from that, but they're probably are going to be eliminated from that eventually. But we got a few things that are going to happen for these last 2 weeks. Last week, we had some great games going into it. But we do have one strange thing that happened. The Bengals and the Legends. They played. Well, they are also going to be playing this week. So it's a little bit strange that they're doing that, but that is how it works out. In the end, I think, though, the Legends will be playing away and the Bulldogs will be playing at home at that regard. But there's not much else to go off that. That being said, there is a couple things to note about a lot of these teams. The Dogs have clinched. They are going to be in the playoffs, no matter what happens. And the Warriors are now clinched. Now the Stars are on the edge of clinching due to the fact that they did lose last week against the Dogs. But they were very close to making into the playoffs. And to be honest, they're this close. They are 4 games. It's behind here. Now, so the thing is, these 2 teams, both the Chargers and Huskies, can technically eliminate them. But with the Stars win, and either a Chargers or Huskies loss, the Stars will clinch the division. They're not insured into the playoffs technically. If they happen to lose every game, they go 10-6, and the team currently in sixth place right now, they could make up to the point where they would be 12-6. So they could be in a better position right now. However, it's very likely that the Stars will clinch going into this next week, depending on just showing it who they actually play against. Warriors, on the other hand, Warriors they are very, very close to making it. The Warriors win or tie, or an Ours loss will get them into the playoffs, will clinch them into the division. Right now, if they were to go for the entire thing, playing the season, it's possible for them to get 12 wins. That is their maximum. And that would put the possibility with the full 5 losses, maybe 12. Yeah, and that would put the R's. Now, the R's are very close to actually making into the playoffs, but all that has to happen is the R's lose or the Warriors win. If the Warriors win, then they will clinch in the division. Talking about the Werewolves off of the context, Werewolves are very close right now. The Werewolves are probably not going to clinch this week, but they might make it into the playoffs at least going this week. They're not going to win the division off this week. And the ABL East is anyone in that division. And this honestly has happened last year too, because this entire division wasn't decided until the very last ending. I believe from last year. Make sure I write this. Last year, let's take a look here. Look at the last year's playoffs. Well, I don't have it. I believe last year, no, it's not this one anyways. The last year, it was extremely close. I think we can look and see what happens for some of these teams going into it. I believe last year it was like down to the wire for the ABL East, and it looks like it's going to be down to the wire again who wins that division. I think it was the Colts that won last year, and they were the only team that made it into the division. But honestly, this still could be anywhere. Anyone could make it into the playoffs at the ABL East. However, unfortunately, whatever team wins the division is going to win the division, and all the other teams are going to make it in. I don't think any of these other teams are going to make it into the actual playoffs. The Colts are currently in the lead, but they are currently on the edge of the position there, because there's a lot of things that could happen. They're only one game ahead of 3 different teams, and then the Techs are 2 games behind. On the other side, we got the ABL, the NBL. NBL is not decided, but pretty much all the divisions kind of have an idea of who's going to win it. We already know the Dogs are going to make it into the playoffs. We know the Tigers are likely to make it to the playoffs. Dragons winning this week will put them into the playoffs, whether or not they actually win it or not. Panthers are likely going to be in the playoffs, although they're not technically in there right now. they could get eliminated officially if they happen to lose the game. If they lose all the games this week, all the games, period, then they could be eliminated. But it requires a lot. Currently 6-5. The 6-5 could be 6-10 officially. Could be, but it could also be +5, making 11 games, which means Panthers aren't clinching yet, because it could be several other teams that could do it. But there is a good chance that the Panthers will be clinching going into it. The thing is, the Panthers and Dogs play in the last 2 weeks of the season. They play in Week 14 and Week 16 against the Dogs. So that could decide who wins that division in the end. They're heavily favored in most positions. They're first in offense. They're sixth in defense. And honestly, I think it looks like the Panthers are in the best position to win this game. Let's go ahead and look at Week 12. I've already done my predictions off of this. We don't want to get any of this. We get some interesting games going. We got the Colts and the Ravens to start off. This is a divisional matchup, I believe. The Colts, okay, it's not even close. The Colts and the Ravens. Ravens are 4-7 right now. Colts are 6-3. Honestly, this could mean a lot for the Colts to win this game, because if the Colts do win this game, then they will be in a much better position to actually win the division. But if they don't, it's going to be difficult. Colts are favored by 34, and that's the big question for me. I'm getting Colts winning here. I think it's going to be very tough, though. Saints and Packers. Saints are not favored whatsoever. It's not even close. Packers are favored by 21 when it comes to the points here. But we look at the Saints. The Saints right now are really far down there. They're 35th and 24th. They're second or the third worst team when it comes to points scoring. Even though they're not as bad as some of the teams in defense, they're just not doing too well when it comes to it. And to me, that's going to make it very difficult versus the Packers, who are in a pretty much better position. They're technically could still make the playoffs. They're better in offense, and they're way better in defense. So, in my opinion, I'm going to say it's the Packers that win this game. We've got the Lions and Otters. That is a tough one. And if the Otters do lose this game, then it will go to being the Warriors will clinch at that point in time. The Lions right now, however, have the number one offense, number one defense. So honestly, that's going to make it very difficult. To me, it's very difficult for me to say what's going to happen in this one. They've got the number one defense. They've only got 737 points, which is ridiculous. Otters have allowed about the same amount of points as they have scored. And to be honest, it's going to be tough. I think this game could go either way for me, and I'm going to go with the Lions, but it's going to be a very tough game. Lions are favored by 2. Legends and Bengals, they played last week, and last week, it was a fairly decently close game for most of that game. Looking at the Legends, though, they're not good in anything, and the Bengals are a whole lot better. I would much think it's very likely that the Bengals will win this game. All right, we got the Panthers and Cardinals playing at 9:00 on Monday. Last week, the 9:00 Monday game was a come from behind win. It was 9 o'clock at that day as well, and the Dolphins came back and won that game. They were losing pretty much the entire first quarter. Then after that, they absolutely demolished the Foxes. I don't think it's going to be nearly as fun of a game. I'm going with the Panthers winning this game. I don't think the Cardinals are good enough to win this game. And with the Panthers win, they will most likely, I think it's probably a 99% chance, clinch a playoff position. Knights and Dogs, tough one, giving the Dogs the win because the Dogs have a much better defensive standing. Knights are not as good when it comes to the fact ends. I'm going to give the Dogs the win. The Giants and Foxes, I gave the Giants the win. The Foxes kind of just collapsed last week, even though it was earlier. They had the longest amount of time basically to prepare, and I just don't think they're going to be able to overcome against the Giants. Pirates and Kings, gave me the Kings. The Pirates are just not great. I don't even know how they've gotten a few wins out of this, but it's just not going to go well for them. I'm giving the Kings the win. UNC and the Bobcats, tough one. Could go either way. But this is going to be a very tough one because UNC and Bobcats are both the same record. To me, it is also pretty simple. I'm going to say UNC has a slight advantage. Not much of one, though, even UNC. So UNC is favored by 15. Lily Cats and the Jets. This is probably should have been the closest game. But the Jets have kind of collapsed over the last couple weeks. So the Jets right now were able to win against the Bears, but then they had a hard time kind of struggling against the Bulldogs, even though they ended up losing that game. And week 9, they absolutely won. So, I mean, it comes down to a lot of things here, and also this can go either way, but Lily Cats are one of the better teams when it comes to the fact here. I'm going to go with the Cats winning this game. Werewolves and Dragons, it is the game of the week. And honestly, there's not any other game that makes any better sense for it. I'm going to say this is going to be a tough one. I'm going to give the Werewolves the win here, but it's a very close game, honestly, between these two teams because both these teams are very good. The Dragons are 8-3, 8 and 3rd, versus the Werewolves are 5th and 2nd. I think the Werewolves are going to have a slight advantage. It's not going to be much minutes. It's going to be a very high-scoring game. Speaking of which, last week, if you look at the 11th game, the game that occurred on for Sunday, the game that was the game of the week, the Stars and Dogs. Well, that game ended up with over 400 points. And majority of those were scored in the first 3 quarters. So that's something that doesn't happen very often. Just to go and point that out. We get to talk about the Chargers and the Huskies. Give me, oh gosh, this is a tough one. Chargers and Huskies are basically fighting for that position to try it. Basically, whoever loses this game is going to make it more difficult. So whoever wins the game could still technically beat out the Stars for the division if they win, whoever wins. Whoever loses is going to have a hard time. I'm going to give the Huskies the win here. It is going to be a very tough game, though. Indians and Bears are both kind of struggling when it comes to the fact that the Indians, this will be the last week where they'll have players not playing. I'm going to give I'm going to give the Indians the win here, but it's going to be a very, very tough game. We got the Tigers and the Hawks. Last week, the Tigers absolutely demolished the team they played against. As for the Hawks, they did pretty well. They did demolish their team. So basically, both these teams did really well this week, but both played against iffy teams. To me, I think the Tigers are going to have the advantage here. Warriors and Lynx, I don't think it's any fair. I think if the Warriors will win, and by doing that, that means the Warriors will have the number one, will have the, not the number one seed necessarily, but they'll have the clinch the division. We've got the Angels and Bulldogs, tough one for me because the Angels just kind of had a hard time last week. Actually, the Angels and ours were able to come basically win that game by a pretty much landslide. They were winning, by the way, by a lot, and they kind of gave up basically at the end of that game. Angels were able to come back in the fourth quarter, but it wasn't even close to enough to win the game. For me, I will say that the Angels should have looked a lot better, and hopefully they do a lot better going into it. I'm going to go the Angels to win. Athens and Lightning, this is not fair. Give me the Athens, the Athens entire way. The Dolphins and Tex, I'm picking the Dolphins. The Tex could do it, but the Dolphins are looking a lot stronger. Stars and Supermen, this is where Stars get the win all the way. And the Falcons and Bird are basically fighting for first place in the division. And I think that this is also going to decide quite a bit about that game, because I believe the Angels and Browns, nope, it's not the Angels and Browns, looking for the game between the Browns and the Falcons. I think the Browns and Falcons will face off again, or will have faced off another time. Browns. I'm thinking that they will face off again in a couple weeks. I don't think they faced off yet for the second time. Oh, no, they faced off in week 10. And the Browns won that game in overtime. So, this game is very important for the Falcons. Falcons must win. If they lose, so actually, honestly, should be in the order. But if the Falcons, basically, here's what happens. If the Falcons lose that game, then by divisional standpoints, the Browns will actually have a better schedule and will actually be able to be a higher seed going into it, which means they're currently in 6th seed, but honestly it's between the 6th and the 3rd seed. They're that close to each other. So basically, those teams are going to swap places if the Falcons lose. And that one, I'm going to pick the Browns. I think the Browns are doing a lot better when it comes to it. That being said, the only thing that's left to note is that World Playoffs are still going to be going on. World Playoffs still off about 6 weeks after today. I think it goes, let me look at the date here. I believe it starts on June 1st. Almost this will be decided by that point in time. That's it for this episode. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video for Sports Hour. See you in week number 13. We'll have hopefully a few more games to clinch. And that is it for Sports Hour.